This is officially Office Lime. This logo is our logo in the future. This branding in the future, but we're going to talk about that later. There's a lot of things we want to do with Office Lime and what have you. So these are products in development, which I'm sure you're not aware of. Nobody's aware of it anyway. So we are trying to maintain legacy systems. Our legacy system is CodeFusion, which is Lucy. So legacy in the sense that they are old system. We are trying to phase them out with new technology, right? And that's where all these other guys comes in, but they are not yet close to market ready. So AssetGear is also a legacy system. This one is plugin libraries, which you will see shortly. Okay, so where does OWAF stays? There are several projects, right? I'll just go in there and try to explain as many projects as I can. So this is Office Lime itself. Office Lime has its own Git repo. You can go and follow. Later, drop me your Git details so that I can add you, so that you can also see all these projects that are preview to you. So this is the Office Lime itself. You can see the nomenclature of what I call it. I call it OAP. Don't worry about the name. I'm going to go through all the repo that we have. So it's pretty active, as you can see. It's very active. That's what we currently running. So it's an enterprise version of Office Lime app. This is AssetGear. This is also active. Now this is Office Lime Edge app. This is also active, as you can see. This is Office Lime Edge. I won't talk into it now. We'll talk into it later. This is a Sozo app. This is I won't say, yeah, it's a sister company, right? They do e-commerce application. Then this is OWAF 3. Now this is Ronix. Ronix is supposed to be a game changer in the platform. I'm going to open Ronix so that you see it. I'm opening it up. I think it's more visible on my own platform. So this Edge app API, because we have the Edge app itself, which is the front end. Then the back end is called the API. Then Office Lime as it is, the enterprise Office Lime that you know, it also have API, right? So like I said, this is also legacy, but the API is written in Golang, which is our attempt to separate Office Lime from CodeFusion. But it's not, we've not really, conclude that. All our APIs are written in Golang, as you can tell from here. Then web apps, what did I do here? So this is me trying to use the Ronix framework and what have you. So this is AssetGear, trying to use TypeScript with it. So let's go back to my personal page. My personal page is where I, pull the repo and then put it back into the company. So on your personal page, obviously, you are going to be pulling from the general site, and then I don't like using that word, F-O-R-K. You're going to be forking the project from, what's the word? From the company. So you have a copy of it, right? And then your commit will be going into it. We'll talk into that later on in detail. So for example, now this is me pulling from Office Lime OWAF. So everything I do here goes into the main project. So these are long story stuffs. This is process guide stuffs. This is me using, what's the name of this language again? Dat. So I want to go into my repository and then talk to, this is what we want to talk about today, the OWAF. We'll talk to one or two things. We will not do any coding today. It's just an overview. I want to make this short overview. If we can get into one or two things, fine, we'll get into it. Okay, this is Golang stuff. I've been doing a lot of stuff on other languages, not just CodeFusion. CodeFusion, we are moving away from CodeFusion, as you know. We're moving away from CodeFusion, and then we're going into Golang, Node.js, TypeScript, JavaScript, and React. Yes, that's our stack, right? So Go being the backend. What this one does is a Go respond lightweight Go library for handling standardized API response using Gene. Just very small stuff. Then Go send is a way to send an email. So if you want to send an email, just use go send, blah. So these are things I wrote myself, right? So the idea is that I'm creating little libraries to help me out do stuff. So I just create POS printer, blah, blah, remote timer. These are stuff I play with, but there are things that you can look into as well. Then this is using that. This is using, that's Flutter. This is using Flutter, and that is that. Let's go into the OWAF. That OWAF sounds somehow. The OWAF sounds better. Okay, you might not see much if you stay in the main. So you need to be on a, which of the branch do I have? Because I did something on one of the branches. So the documentation got lost inside of these branches. It's inside future, this future 0.2 under this. I will find a way to put it inside the main branch. So this is 6 commits ahead. This branch is 6 commits ahead. So let me check which of the branch that I'm working on locally. So this is my local stuff. I use fork.dev. So let me show you. I think it's either fork.dev or fork.io. Yeah, this is what I use for my stuff. Even though it's paid, right? You can use the free evaluation version, which they will not charge you. But if you have the money, you can pay for it. So that's what I'm using. They are not really limiting me, but I don't know if you can still get it for free. But I've been using it for free, right? So it's very good for me. I think it's good. So you can try it out if it will allow you to download it for free. If not, you can look for another Git version out there that is also good. I was going to talk to, yeah, let me see what I have locally on my system, because I'm surprised that the documentation was not on the main, it's not on the main branch. So this is OWAF here, OWAF 3. And funny enough, I'm working directly on the main branch. That's very funny. That's very funny. So, and that's because it is on my own. This is the official one. So I made my own version and I was working with it. So which is here. This is me here working with this. So normally we are supposed to pull this commit inside of this guy. And let me explain it to you like this. If you have an open source software like this is an open source software defined by or created by Office Lime. Anybody could actually fork it and contribute to it. Once they contribute to it, they can submit a pull request. What a pull request means is that, hey, I've done these wonderful changes and I want to put it back to the original. So that's what I will then do for me. I'll say, oh, you can see that he's featuring this guy and these are the things he has done, right? And 13 commits. He has made 13 commits to this project, but the commit has not entered into the main project, right? That's what I would do backend. So I need to create a pull request and bring it, and that will be the official thing, because that's the way it's supposed to be. If you want to use it, you're supposed to fork the original and move on. Of course, someone else can come and fork my own here, which is still the same. Not the same anyway, but my own will not be the original to that person. So let's move on. Let me explain what OWAF is, even though you know. Let me just go through it. So getting started with OWAF, this guide will walk you through all these stuffs. These are the requirements for running this. You need these 3 things, right? You need Lucy to be your 5.0. 6.0 upward is not supported. So just stick at from 4.5.0 downward. Then you have to have MySQL. Then the code base itself, you need it. So the code base is here. These 2 guys are the code base. You don't need this example because it's like how it's being used. What you need to focus on is the com, the tag, and yeah, everything goes well. The setup is more of like, how do you set up a new project? And we're not going to be setting up new projects with OWAF. We're going to be using our legacy software, which is Office Lime. And the way Office Lime is set up is that you have the Office Lime folder, right? And then you have, which I will show you later. So you are not learning how to create projects with OWAF. You are learning how to use OWAF to maintain our legacy projects or code. So you have this structure. You have this one comes with Lucy, the font, and every other thing goes inside. Every other thing here will be CodeVision based. Renaming your project, optional. So this should be called Office Lime X and what have you. So what are the major important things that you need to worry about? There's these core folders that are key to the system itself. Within your project, you have assets. Of course, this is where you put all your stuff. Controller, OWAF itself, model view. So it follows MVC. MVC means model view controller. Model is where you have your table structure. Controller is what binds the view and the model together. Because the view we call the controller we call the model. The model is where your logic is. Even sometimes they put logic in the controller, but most of the time your business logic ends up in a model. Okay, uses MVC model approach, and this folder holds all your controllers, right? Of course, you're going to see examples. Then you have your view. View is your UI. View is your UI. That's where your table, your structure, your tags, your view tags, and everything, that's where it is. Now, using OWAF in your projects. So we start with model first. Model is the abstract of your data, the structure, how your data will look like. Okay, so I'm giving an example that if you have an article model, article has to do with, article is just anything now. It's not something serious. It's just a table. Right? It can be anything. So an article will have, I'm not going into detail in terms of the fields that it will have, but this is how to define an article. Like a model, create a model of an article. You will say a project one. The reason why we're using project one is because that's the name of the folder structure here. When you are dealing with Office Lime, what would you see there? You see Office Lime, and then the OWAF here, I think it should be, it's not OWAF 3, it's just called OWAF, right? This OWAF here is the way it needs to go. Then the com and model, it needs to come like this. Now, this is tallying with the code structure inside this com folder here. So in the com folder, we have this, and then we have the model stuff. This is the file is trying to initiate. All the model you are creating inherits from this model.cfc. Let's continue. So that's just this part. He extends, that, and you are creating your first function, which is the article, right? It has to tally with the name, and this you have to use the initialize function, this like the controller, and you pass in a parameter for the name of the table. Very important. That's how the system will know the table to go and query. So this is the name of the table in your database. Whatever the name of the table is, that's what you put here. It can be written anyway. Anyhow you put it, it doesn't discriminate. Well, you do that, and then you now run this code like, okay, this super initialize, pass this table across. What this is trying to do is that it's calling this model and setting the argument of the table, setting it inside the model. That's just what it's doing. So this is like a template that you have to do. You have to create this when you are creating a new model. And the reason why I'm explaining this to you is because by the time you start modifying Office Lime code, there will be an instance where you need to create a new section, create a table and use the table. So you will need to create a model. So let me give you an example. Let's go into a live code. I think we'll be jumping into it so that you will see a live code at work. Now, this is Office Lime. And you can see what is called here. This is Office Lime X. This is OWAF project itself, standing on its own. I have access to the source code. I can modify it anywhere I want, if need be. So you need to have it for it to run as well. It needs to be sitting somewhere. And you can see the structure that it has the controllers, it has the models, it has the view as well. And then it also have OWAF, stuff. Okay. Remember, you're not creating new projects, so you don't need to worry about, oh, how do I set up projects? You are maintaining existing legacy code. So that's why it makes it's more, I think, easier and less stressful for you. So we're looking at models. So let's pick one model. There's several models here. As you can see, there are several models, and I group them in folders because model or there are several models in the database or several tables, and a table can be based on a module. For example, now if I'm building a blog system, a blog can have several tables that relate to it. Imagine I just put all those tables here. This will be so long. So this creates a kind of a way for me to manage the table, which I think looks nice. So let's say something that, let's say, what can I use as an example? Let's say payroll. Payroll looks relatively easy, but there are other things. Let's say vendor. So even though this one is just one table, right? Let's look for something a little bit less, maybe sophisticated a little bit. Yeah, this is a little bit sophisticated because the sales now has so many things. It has company, it has contact, it has contact activity. So this now looks so complex. Let's try procurement. Yeah, procurement looks fairly easy. It has PO, meaning purchase order. It has PO items. It has PO item received. It has PO payment. These are all tables directly mapped in your in your database. So let's look at PO, for example. Let's see how we pulled off creating the components. You might end up seeing something more, detailed here, because here I'm actually making use of all the functionality, and I might not present that in my documentation. Where's the documentation guy again? So you can see here, I made it as lean as possible so that not to confuse, you and things like that. But in the actual sense, it comes with more stuff. Okay, so let's look at it. This, you already saw this. The PO tallies with the name of the full file. That's to tally. That's the object. So look at what I said. Extend this guy. So if this guy is if it's empty, passing the PO as this is the full table name. It's called PO in the database. Now, this is me calling the super class. That's the super component here. And there's something new I've added to it, is a tenant. Now, this one is a little bit tricky. What this one does is that it allows you to automatically serve the PO data without every time specifying the tenant. Okay, so what is this all thing about tenant? We'll have a special time to talk about tenant later. I don't want to diverge or go into tenancy later. Tenant is a way to manage all our clients, right? Tenant is a way to manage all our clients. If you did not specify tenant here, you should just pull all the records. Okay, so this is a real life, example of the usage. And if you pull out any of them, they all have that initial setup. And one of the things that makes them different is the table they are calling. So you can see the way the table is. All of them have this initial setup. So it's more of like a template. So anyone you pull, in fact, for some document, that's the listing they do. Nothing more, nothing less. This is how you can pull data using OWAF to get, stuff. Okay, let's move on. Let's continue with what we have in the documentation. Now, how do you consume the model? What that means, how do you make use of the model in your controller? So who should call the model? Your controller should call your model, right? Who should call the controller? Your view should call the controller. Your view should call the controller. Yeah, that's why it's called MVC, model view controller. That's not like that's the way they work. It's just like it's more easier to call MVC that way. So the way the whole thing works is that is view CM, VCM. I don't know why they don't call it VCM. So it means the view we call the controller, and the controller we hit the model. The model gets back to the controller gets back to the view. Okay, moving on. We have consuming the model. The model, this is how we describe the model. So this is me just trying to explain. We use the model keyword. This OWAF understand what model is. Then we describe the model and it returns the model object. Okay, so now what is model description? Model description is the model description in the following. It has the following format. that you have to follow to describe a particular model. So you have to put the model name, the model table, the model alias. Don't worry about all this. So, but you can just simply, these things are kind of sophisticated. They deliver more stuffs, right? But you can just simply do something like this. Hey, invoice is equal to model invoice. So what this does is that it creates, and no, it doesn't create an invoice. You just create the model invoice model. I mean, it creates invoice model, not necessarily create new invoice into the system, right? It creates it and then assign. You can then use this to do more stuffs. Now, the model object allows you to do a lot of stuffs. And apart from us, before we go into deep and start talking about what the model allows you to do, we can then talk about other facilities, other features that the model, has, like a parameter. One of the things that it allows you to do is that it allows you to enable versioning, version enabling. What does that mean? It means when you say that this model has, version enabling functionality in it, what happens is that anytime you save an information into the model, it creates a new version. That's just literally what it is. But there's a requirement to using this. You can't just say enable version and the magic gets done. For now, you have to create a new table. So imagine you have payroll table, right? And anytime you want to create a new payroll, you want to keep the history of what you've done. The best example is the invoice, because invoices change. It's possible that you change a version of invoice. You want to know all the history of the invoices that was created. If you do enable versioning, you then need to create another duplicate invoice. But this time around, you put dash history in the front. So what that means is that all the historical information that you've created will be hitting the history, so that the new update that you've done will be overridden by it will go into the invoice table. Okay, so now this is saying that's what this one does. That's what it does. So we'll look at where it is being used. I don't think I use it in Office Lime. I use it in other projects. By the way, you guys know that we do other projects, not just this alone. So there's no example on Office Lime. We didn't use it on Office Lime. We use it on other projects, which we might be talking about, in other, sessions. Now there's this has many. By the way, the model is a kind of ORM. It's a kind of ORM functionality I did on it. It's an ORM kind of a thing. Yeah. So has many setup, has many association between this model and the specific one. So you can say this particular model has many of these models. So it has to be a table name. Table name, I think there's a mistake there. It doesn't have to be table name. It has to be the model name. I can't remember now if it's table name or model name. So I think it's a table name. Yeah, it's table name. And then it has to be in plural form. So you can say an article. This is the article, our first example that we did here for this article, right? So if you want to create that it has many comments, you will say project that article has inside, while you're in the public initialization, you now say has many comments. So let me see the usage of has many. I think we use has many. We use has many. So if you go to, oh, interesting. I can't see has many here. We didn't use has many in Office Lime. That's interesting. Now, the reason is because I'm trying to reduce the use of all these advanced features. And the reason is because they kind of slow down the system. That's one of the disadvantages of using ORM. When you use all the function of ORM, they slow down your stuffs. So let me look for this one. May have one. May have one is when you want to do like a left join. So an example of it, and these are the parameters it has. It uses model description, foreign key, and then if you want to have a deep relationship. So let's not go to detail. The example is a book. A book may have one publisher. Of course, there's also, in fact, it's not supposed to be may. A good example is must have one publisher, because you can't have a book without. Can you have a book without a publisher? Yes, possible. So you can have may have one, and by the way, you also have must have one. You have must have one. That's like an inner join. So let me look for may have one. I think I use this one a lot. So this, let me look for where I can explain it better. Let's use objectives. In performance appraisal, an objective may have one appraisal grouping. So this is objective. So this is saying an objective must have an appraiser. So you can't have an objective without an appraiser, and then may have an objective category or an objective group. So that's an expression there. So what this does is that it creates the query for you to do whatever you need to do. So we're still in the documentation. So by extension, I've explained must have one and may have one. The must have one uses inner join, if you know SQL very well, while the may have one uses left join to do its thing. Okay, then you also have delete. Delete is to delete the model or delete a record. You can't delete the model, delete a record in a value. So how do you use it? You say, oh, article is equal to model article. What it does is create the model object. Then you can then say model article dot find. You notice that this is the same. The reason is because when you find, it returns the model again, returns the model back to you. So it's not returning a record. It's returning the model as an object. Then you can say article.delete and then delete this guy. Of course, you can just simply write your SQL, but why not do so? This is ORM, and sometimes it's very heavy doing stuff like this, even though it's convenient when you code, but in practice, when you are writing, so there's a debate around ORM. I don't want to go into that rabbit hole right now. So delete all means that you want to create something like this. We have a better syntax than this. This is the old syntax. I don't know why I've not updated it. So the better syntax that we have allows you to cater for SQL injection. So this one is not good because it allows SQL injection in, right? So it caters for this. Pass this as a variable so that you can then use it. So let me show you, let me see if it's implemented so that I can demonstrate that to you. Since we're on this section, quickly. Okay, right, this is a very, not a very good example, but let me check. Am I not getting a good example here? Oh, this one are not good example for us to use. Okay, let me not use this. Let me not say it this way. Huh. Interesting. So this is not giving me the vibe, what I want, but you will see how you can protect against something like this. So this is not a good way to work with string or value coming into your database, because you need to be able to prepare or prevent SQL injection. That's basic. Okay, moving on, we have delete all in key, meaning delete where everything is this one. This is how that works. Find, we just looked at find, how find works, and returns the stuff. Find all returns a query. So you can say find all, and it gives you ability to do this, even though you could write a query. So you can say where, yeah, this one is where I need to show you that part. The same thing happens here as well. This can be query injection. You can quickly inject some bad stuff inside here. So let me look for find all and see that. I think we will see that because I'll make sure that, let me check. Okay. Yeah, so this is it. Now notice this is also a little bit messy, or rather it's kind of too much. You might not see it clearly, but if you look closely, you will notice that it's an array that has two sections. The first section is where you have the um, arguments, or rather the fields, but you have this semicolon to denote that, oh, this is a variable, this is a variable, and this is also another variable. So we have like three variables coming in, or placeholder, three placeholder. You have 1, 2, 3. So inside that, you can then, after you are done with this first part of the array, the second part can now start addressing the placeholder. Say SID is equal to this, RED is equal to this, type is equal to this. So that way it guide against SQL injection. Let me see if I will see another easier example to use. Yeah, this is another easy example to use. So let me just break it. But it's a long query. This query is so long. So let me make it easy on the eyes to read. So where payroll, is equal to months. Yeah. Now, what I've done here is this, very important. So the same thing, this could also as well be because you can actually inject stuff here. However, this is a variable that was set by the application. The application set this variable. So you don't need to worry on that note. So on that note, you don't need to worry on that part. The system set this application. Now the question is, why didn't I do the month, year thing that I did on that one? Now the reason why is that this is a structure. A structure, you can actually dump a structure inside here. It will split itself up. The value of month and year is already inside the argument here. So it will just dump itself here and accept or use the proper type place that it's supposed to use. And you're good to go. Okay, let's see what we have next. So we have find Q is like saying find by primary key, but you are returning a query. Find by a primary key. Then you have quite a lot of other ones. Get current value version. You have quite a lot of them. So we won't go into details too much. We also have join if you want to join another table, because when you create the model, it's possible that you don't want to join everything on when you initialize it, because there's cost to everything you do. There's cost to everything you do. When you create, let me go to the topmost section of this code so you see what I'm talking about. So when you first create this guy, okay, this is a controller. We need to work with a model. So I'll just pick any model at random. So when you create this, for example, for the first time, you doing this create a cost to the system. If this was removed, it will load faster. So that's what happened, when I was doing this section here for the test. You want to create it. When you create a model, you don't want it to delay you. Later when you need it, you can then join what you need in the code. Join it and then go and use it. So that way it's more faster and it will be more responsive based on where you are doing it. So you can see that I can do book, join publisher, and then join the author later on. I don't need to do everything when I'm creating the model, because I might not need the publisher and the author down the line at some point. So you can do join, or you can decide to do L join. L join is your left join. So instead of you saying join, you can do left join. And the same method, so you can say book, L join, and then you get the same thing. Okay. So you can also do something like this, count. So I would like you to go through this documentation. This is just model, and what that does is gives you what is doable, right? You can write your normal query, and there are examples to most of the use cases that you've seen. You can sum stuff as much as possible. If you can write direct SQL, you can also write your direct SQL. Yeah. like I said, most times you're not going to be creating an application with this. You're just maintaining legacy code. So you still need to know how to write them and how to use them. Another part is, how do you save data? How do you save data? Here, we want to, get a book. What you are doing here is you are getting book with ID 2 and you want to update it. So once you get it, the next thing, you are setting the attributes. You are setting the title, you are setting the description. And once you are done, you then save. That's what happens here. So if you want to save direct, what save direct means is that you want to disable, don't want it to affect the versioning. That's what save direct means. So if you come here, you want to be able to bypass the versioning thing. So if you find the book, you can just say save direct, and then you pass all the parameter inside, and then you save. It won't come with version. Yeah. Also, there's also way to save data to database directly if versioning is enabled on the okay. Then there's another one that says save without history. Why do I have these two? Does it look as if they are conflicting each other? Okay. So I have another one, save without history. Save data to the database without creating a history record. Okay. So the same thing, once you are done, you just say save without history. It won't save with history. I'll send a model object record to the trash. Yeah, there's also a trash. We also maintain a trash. This one is very important. It's possible. I implemented it in performance appraisal. So they want to delete an appraisal, but I want to keep a copy of the appraisal. To implement this, you need to create a table called deleted and the name. So you will say, if you want to keep a record of a deleted book, you will say deleted underscore book, and you will and that's all. Once you want to delete, you just call dot trash. Literally, it will be deleted from the table. It will be wiped away from the table because I don't want to create a flag. So what it does is that it moves that record, that article record, or that table record inside the record of what you've created. It literally creates a new table, right? So it moves the data. That way, when I'm querying stuff, I don't need to use some weird where clause to separate that. Oh, when trash is one, when trash, it moves it away. So now we are done with model. We are done. I think I covered 90% of model, even though all the documentation are not complete. There are some things that I must have missed because I can't explain every detail in the code. There are a lot of things that I didn't talk to. These are just brief things. Now, what we just finished talking about is the model parts. Model part. There's controller. What controller does is that most of the time they're like a helper stuff. I use them for helping me to achieve a lot of things with the model. So I won't be able to demonstrate this one. For example, this count editable item in a form. So until I show you an interface before this will make sense. Now, I have a component that I created, and that's talking to the view. We have the view section. Now, to explain the count editable item in form, what does that mean? It's used in a tabular details when you have tabular record to update. Now, look at this. Do you notice this is a tabular form? When we get to tags or view, there's a lot in view. We're not going to take view today. View is going to be another session. Now, this was done with a component. This was done with a component. Imagine you've gone ahead to create all these things, right? You've added information here. You've added information here. And while you are doing it, you even delete it. By the way, what we just deleted now, it has a number, because when we create it, this thing comes with numbers in the code. So if it's visible to you, it might not be visible to you now, but there's a number, an ID. This is not description 5, right? So what happens when you submit it? How will the system know the form when you submit it? That's why I have an helper too. Of course, you can write your code to find all the forms and then do the needful that it needs to do. But I've come up with code that will help to do that, which is count. This one counts the fields available. That's what this one does. Count and return the maximum number of items in an editable tag. That tag you just saw, that interface you just saw is called editable. Editable. And a table that is editable. That's what it's called, right? We'll get to see that inside view. Now we have that, and we also have this one as well. I think they work hand in hand. So this is maximum editable item. You need to know this value to be able to run a loop. Long story. You see me work with these ones. Then you have maximum value of sub items in a form. Let me even query one of them and show you the use case. Let's see where it was used. So you can see that it was used in quite a lot of stuffs. So if I come here now, look at what I did. I say loop through maximum value of sub items in this field. And when I'm looping through them, look at what I'm doing. I'm saving the value, you know, right? That's it. Without this now, I won't be able to know what I'm doing. Long story. But of course, you could find other way, but you need to be able to go through it and then save the value into the table or into record. There are some where I will check for some stuff for some reason. Now look at it again. I'm looping through it here and I'm doing some series of checking. If something does not align together, you can see where I'm shouting. I'm saying something should happen or what have you. I can look at another part as well. This is saving data. When I'm okay, I think we've sent this one. So you can see what I'm doing here. I'm getting manual content, and I'm trying to save. Also, and I'm checking the action. If the action is for deleting, I'm deleting that. If not, I'm updating what needs to be done. So you can see me calling the save button and then making a new record and saving. So we didn't see the new instance for a model. We didn't get to see that in the model, but if you go through the documentation, you should see the new stuff there. Okay, so let's continue and see what other things the controller has to have for us. So the controller has the ability to call the model. The model function is a controller kind of a thing. So if we're in a controller now, or rather we're in a model actually, but we should be able to look for a model anywhere. So if I'm inside, in fact, even in a view, I can call the model guy to do stuff for me. You can see that even in a model, you can call model. Is a function that is available to both the model and the controller. So in a model, you can call another model. In a controller, you can just call up a model. Yeah, so that is a thing that we have. So we have that. So we've already demonstrated the use of that inside the controller. Now, that is the end of what we have. But before we go to the end, let me talk to send mail. Send mail allows you can just send a mail to anybody using this. You don't need to worry about CF mail and you specifying the parameter and what you need to do. Just pass this guy and your mail is on dispatch, ready to go. So let me show you a simple mail, sending a mail. This is how it is. You just say send mail you would have gotten the email of the person, the subject, the body. If it has attachment, it has attachment. In fact, we went a step further to create notification section. This part is beautiful. What this section does is that it adds notification to Office Lime interface. So what does that mean? Imagine I sent a mail to somebody, right? That mail, even though it delivers to you via email, it also comes here as a notification, and you can see that email here. So the best way to do it is to single-handedly put it inside this function. And after you must have sent the mail finish, you can see that the tag, you have the tool, subject, body. We now have a section for notification. You can then start defining how the notification thing works. The way the notification thing works is pretty simple. You have the title of the notification. Say what, let me show you an example of a notification so that you see. If you click on it like so, it has this title thing, right? That's sent you a leave. That's the title, right? Then the next one, it doesn't have details. There's no details of notification because the assumption is that you already have it. The notification must always point you to a URL, to a place. So you then put in the URL here. Of course, Office Lime has, or OWAF has, this format for naming URLs. Our URL does not work like, the conventional URL. The URL works with dot, 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 dot like this. And let's see more URLs. Let's see more example. Emails were sent and notifications. So this is another example. So the URL works like this. You're passing the endpoints, and then this one is to pass a key. We'll talk more about this when we get to view, because the view is where, in the view subject, is where we'll talk about how the URL is being constructed. And I'm sure you have a little bit understanding about the URL stuff, kind of. So this one happens to be the controller. So if I should explain this one to you now, I think you might get it. So this is the folder, right? This is the folder. This is the controller, and this is the function. So I will explain that again. So if you want to look for this now, it's pretty easy to look for. So to look for it, you need to go to, I said this is the controller or the folder. Inside the controller, the folder is appraiser. Then the CFC is manager. If I click it to change this page, then from manager, here is the function view objective. But in the function, there's no underscore. The function is one word. It's called view objective. So I go to manager, then I look for one word view objective, and I have this here. No, not this one. I have this here. That's how the system maps what to do, where to call. So when you click on, I've lost where I was coming from. So let me just assume is this. When you click on the carrier, this is folder, subfolder, the CFC, that's the component, that's the controller, then the function. Once it goes here, it maps to the view. So we'll talk about that in the next session. So there we go. That is our model and controller. In our next section, we'll talk about the tags. So this is more of like the view. So we have several tags. These tags are what makes up the visual component of our. So you can see all the tags, the X form, all the tags in view. These are the tags. After we must have done with this, we will now start looking at real life scenario and how to build a simple component.